Welcome to Purposely Peaceful. I'm your host, Jessica Rivera, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a quantum hypnosis practitioner. This podcast is where real life meets inner peace. You'll get honest conversations, practical tools, and soulful guidance to help you live with more clarity, calm, and purpose. Hi, friends. I'm sharing with you what someone once told me. And it's one of those sentences that lives rent-free in my head and replays itself often, and usually it pops up when I least want it to. So if you're ready for it, here it is. Someone once told me that I have to be the best at what I'm the worst at. It's one of those sentences that kind of gets you to stop for a second. You're like, wait, what? That's different. What it meant for me at the time was that I needed to strengthen my emotional resilience. And by the very nature of that choice, I'd also be the leader in my home to show my family the way. And it's something that I still work on. I've not reached a point where I'm like zen all the time and just at peace 24/7. That is not what it looks like. But it was the beginning of this personal challenge. This statement that I have to be the best at what I'm the worst at has revisited me time and time again, and each time for different reasons. How does this tie into becoming purposely peaceful? Because the pursuit of inner peace puts us face to face with our whole self, the best and the worst in us. It's the part that some of us want to avoid, or the part that we shrink because the discomfort is so intense. I see it all the time, and myself included, where we shrink ourselves to fit in, to be liked, to make a relationship work, to act like we have it all together, whatever the case. We usually hide our worst qualities because they are the parts of us that we feel least excited about. It's not the things that we're usually proud of. When I was a kid, if someone had told me, you're going to record yourself and you're going to put it out there, I thought I'd faint doing something like that, and I'm not kidding either. But here I am, imperfectly showing up to whoever wants to listen. Am I the best at this? No, not at all, but I do feel like I've made a lot of progress within myself, and that feels good. That feels good that I'm able to do that. This is just a small example, but it's a big deal to me. I'm also the worst at receiving attention. Asking for attention isn't something that sounds appealing to me. Small me would rather fade into the background because it feels safe. It feels like no one can say or do anything because I'm not making myself an easy target. But I still circle back to this one sentence that I've got to be the best at what I'm the worst at. And somehow, as contradictory as that statement feels, I allow it to guide me. I want to chicken out and retreat. But that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense if I'm trying to live life at full capacity. Maybe you don't want to live life at full capacity. Perhaps there's no intense need for your highest potential. You're doing great right where you are, and I'm happy for you. But maybe your worst is learning to keep your messy room clean. Maybe it's to stop a bad habit, to allow for healthy habits to fill up your life. Our own highest potential is unique. There is no one that's going to be exactly like me and no one that's going to be exactly like you. So I'm calling you out, yes, you, wherever you are, to consider what you're the worst at. Where in your life is it feeling like, yeah, that's bad, might need to change that? How do we become the best at what we're the worst at? Be honest with yourself, and not in a rude way. Be lovingly honest to yourself. It's okay that you're the worst at something or many things. It's a starting point. Most people don't wake up being experts at anything. Maybe you feel like you're failing at something. What in that feels like you're the worst at? Here's another thing you can do, is learn to go with the flow. Sometimes when we don't have a lot of clarity, it stops us from moving forward. We get frozen. We end up blocking ourselves because we're just not quite sure what to do. So instead of allowing ourselves to get stuck, imagine life as a stream of water. Life is constantly flowing, but there's usually rocks and mountains and valleys and all the things. So there might be some boulders impacting the flow of water. But as more water comes in, it's going to start flowing again. Where is the water most likely to flow? In this case, where in life does the direction of your flow go? Sometimes it's the path of least resistance. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good starting point, and it's what would come easiest. If you're choosing something hard, then you'll just need more energy, more water buildup to propel upward. I don't even know if that makes sense. I've probably heard it way smoother in different ways, but I think you know where I'm going with it. And so, all that to say, life will keep flowing, but you have to allow for it to flow. Sometimes small, teeny tiny steps are just as valuable as huge, gigantic leaps. Because maybe these little tiny decisions, these little tiny choices are going to open the floodgates for water to rush in. This might seem obvious, but I'd like to remind you that there's always room for improvement. The reason that I'm pointing this out is because there is a lot of pressure to do things right, which is okay. We can always learn as we go. We can always try again at life, at different things that we do. And in almost all areas of life, there is a room for improvement. The truth is, one day you'll be an expert at what you do. And what was once your worst is up there with the best of them now. Here's another way to look at it. So, there's a lot of people that I know that want to start their own business, that feel called to be public speakers, that feel called to inspire people. And think about all the people that you listen to. Every single podcaster, social media person, or business that's now on an online platform, they all started somewhere. And at one point, they were new at what they were doing. And then they just kept going and going. And then at some point, they became an expert at what they do. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's so many podcasters that just started interviewing people because they wanted to learn more. And then they become the experts. And to me, life is similar that way. Maybe it's not your goal to start a business or an organization that does this or that, which is fine. Maybe you want to learn how to make sourdough bread. There's going to be that first time that you figure out how to work with the sourdough starter. Maybe there's going to be a point where you're like, I have to figure out how to even get sourdough starter. And at some point, you bake enough bread and now you're an expert. It's easy. It becomes routine. Like, I can make pizza crust off of the top of my head. I don't need to follow a recipe because I know what to do. I've done all the steps. I've done it so many times. I kind of feel like I'm a pro at it now. I do believe that if you put in the work, if you put in the effort, if you put in the time, you will get those results. It's about persistence and staying the course and not giving up. So if you want to learn more about that specifically, go back and listen to episode 25 about what you resist persists, because it complements this episode, and it is about how to stop fighting yourself and to start flowing in the direction that you want. So if you want to hear more about it, check out episode 25. And if you like personal growth, lucky for you, you're going to have more things that you're the worst at to invest in. And then your investment in yourself shifts to the next thing. And if you're wondering, okay, so how do I invest in myself? I do think that you need to figure out what you're trying to do. Is it a business idea? Is it going back to school? Is it changing careers or getting a new job? You want to have a general idea of what direction you're going in. And I think one of the first things that you can do is get information. Then there's the skill that we're trying to develop that's going to require us to practice it over and over again. It's no surprise here, repetition is going to be really, really helpful. So what once took me 10 hours to do one episode takes me maybe about 4 to 6 at this point, depending on how distracted I am. Something else that you can do is hire someone to help you. This is where you hire a tutor, a therapist, a coach, a teacher of some sort. And they are experts in their field that can help you with whatever you feel like you need some support with. Something else that you can do is to pick someone's brain. Talk to someone who's already doing what you hope to do one day. Another thing that you could do to invest in yourself is to get an online course or some kind of online certification, depending on what you're looking for. And almost everything is online now. So if you want to learn how to fix a leaky faucet, it's going to be there. If you want to learn how to write a business plan, and AI is extremely helpful in those areas as well. And if you need a creative boost, AI can give you so many ideas. Get curious and let that guide you. And that's where that flow really helps you because sometimes we don't really know all the answers. We just need a little guidance. We need a little more information. And going with the flow might be part of that process of getting information, asking questions, and learning about something. Part of going with the flow is allowing for new information to come in, to become curious and see if there's anything that catches your attention. It's going to help you go with the flow. I remember when I first heard that sentence, be the best at what you're the worst at. My immediate response was a wave of anxiety and some overwhelm because I knew what was to come. I knew all the things that scared me. I resisted because I knew the challenge that was now in front of me. I knew how uncomfortable and awkward it would be. What I know of myself is that I knew I wasn't going to back down. Every single part of me was like, oh, hell no, I don't want to do that. No way. But there was this part of me, it's like, but you have to. And I don't know where the have to comes from, but I felt that very deeply. And so it's one of those things where I know that I want to learn for the rest of my life. I know that I want to grow and evolve, and I just have to trust the process. I think the gift here is time because I had time to get to that place of learning to overcome this feeling. Have you ever looked back at your life a year ago, 5 years ago, or even 20 years ago, and you've realized how much you've grown, how much you've changed? And I bet some of those years you didn't even realize what you were doing, that you were evolving and growing. Regardless of whether or not you want to focus on your worsts, more than likely you're going to evolve anyway. I'm simply asking you to consider getting focused. Perhaps what could have originally took you 10 years can take you 1 year or 2 years because you're giving yourself laser like focus. Now, imagine how that can beautifully impact your life. Consider for yourself what part of your life needs this attention to get laser focused. I've never evolved so much that I thought I was going to ruin my life. In fact, it's made my life more meaningful, more rewarding, more exciting. I don't think that's a problem. When I've been in sessions and this topic has come up, I've seen how this statement triggers in others what it once did in me. There's like this eye opening, eyebrow raising moment. It can be scary at times doing new things. Do yourself a favor and circle back to this one sentence that I've got to be the best at what I'm the worst at. As I always say, the choice is yours, and what you're going to do about it is on you. You have the freedom to decide if you're up for the challenge. And so I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next one.